When a man is drawn to you, it's not just about desire, it's about energy. There's a force within him that's ancient, instinctive, and deeply psychological. But most people misunderstand it. They think sexual energy is only physical. They reduce it to attraction, chemistry, or conquest. Yet, in truth, this energy is creative. It's the same drive that fuels ambition, confidence, and connection. When you learn how to channel it, not manipulate it, but guide it, something powerful happens. You become the space where he feels most alive, most inspired, most drawn to become more of himself. It's not about playing games or withholding attention. It's about understanding the emotional current beneath his desire and knowing how to meet it with presence, depth, and feminine intelligence. When we talk about sexual energy, most people reduce it to chemistry. A spark, a look, a physical pull. But if you look deeper, you'll realize it's much more than that. Sexual energy is emotional currency. It's how we trade attention, validation, and intimacy. Every glance, every touch, every silence between two people carries value. It communicates longing, curiosity, and vulnerability. When you begin to see sexual energy as something emotional, not just physical, you unlock the power to connect beyond attraction, to create emotional obsession. A man's desire isn't just about his body responding to yours. It's a reflection of his internal world, his unmet needs, his longing for recognition, his search for meaning through connection. Sexual energy becomes the language through which he tries to feel alive, seen, and understood. When you understand this, you stop reacting to his desire as something external. Instead, you start to read it. You listen beneath it. You understand what it represents. Most women, however, are taught to either fear or exploit this energy. They learn to suppress it or to use it as leverage, thinking that's how power works. But true power isn't in withholding or over giving. It's in understanding what this energy is really doing. It's the most primal communication we have. It's how two people say, "I see you," before words even exist. When a woman channels this energy with emotional awareness, she doesn't just attract, she awakens. She becomes the mirror in which a man sees his most passionate, alive self reflected back. And that reflection is intoxicating to him. Because it's rare, it's not about being overtly sexual or emotionally distant. Desire, it's about knowing that his attraction to you is as much about how he feels around you as it is about what he sees in you. Every human being wants to feel significant, especially in intimacy. When you meet a man's sexual energy with emotional intelligence, you make him feel understood at a level he cannot articulate. You acknowledge that his desire is not something to judge or control, but something to decode. You see the man behind the desire, the one who wants to be chosen, admired, inspired. And when that happens, something profound shifts. His focus on you stops being about momentary gratification. It turns into psychological fixation. You channel his sexual energy by grounding yourself in your own. You don't chase validation through his attraction. You become the source of it. That changes the dynamic completely. Instead of reacting to his energy, you direct it. With calmness, with mystery, with self-awareness. The more centered you are in your own sensual presence, the more his energy naturally aligns with yours. You're not taking from him, you're guiding him into a space where his attraction finds emotional depth. Sexual energy becomes obsession when it finds resonance, when it's met, mirrored, and magnified. That's why emotional intelligence is magnetic. It creates the balance between tension and safety, between desire and connection. When a man feels that balance with you, he doesn't just want to possess you. He wants to stay in that energy. It becomes his sanctuary. So instead of asking, how do I make him want me more? Ask, what is his desire really expressing? Because once you understand that, you no longer need to perform or persuade. You simply embody. His energy will naturally seek yours, not because you're playing a role, but because you've tapped into the emotional undercurrent that makes desire meaningful. That's the real alchemy of attraction. Transforming raw desire into emotional gravity, where he's not just drawn to your body, but to the feeling of himself when he's around you. Mystery is not about withholding information or pretending to be unavailable. It's about preserving the unknown that keeps desire alive. When you create tension through mystery, you give space for imagination to breathe. You allow curiosity to grow, and curiosity is one of the most powerful emotional triggers in attraction. A man doesn't obsess over what he fully understands. He obsesses over what he can't quite grasp. The mind craves completion, and when you embody just enough openness to draw him in, but retain enough depth to make him wonder, you activate that natural human tension that fuels desire. Distance, on the other hand, often kills connection. When you pull away in a calculated way to manipulate attention, it might create temporary pursuit, but it rarely creates lasting emotional impact. Mystery doesn't come from disappearing. It comes from being present in a way that still leaves him wondering what's happening behind your calm expression, your pause, your thoughtful silence. It's the emotional restraint that whispers instead of shouts, that invites rather than demands. When a woman can hold that balance, available yet unpredictable, warm yet not overly revealing, she becomes magnetic. A man's fascination grows in the spaces between clarity and uncertainty. When he feels that he can't completely define you, he keeps seeking to understand you. He listens more closely, watches more intently, pays attention to the smallest details, because something in him feels there's always more to discover. That's what mystery does. It keeps the energy alive, circulating, moving. It turns interaction into exploration. And in that exploration, emotional obsession begins to form. Tension through mystery isn't about playing, it's about pacing emotional revelation. Think of it like a dance. If you rush every step, the rhythm collapses. But if you know when to pause, when to let silence speak, when to let your eyes say more than your words, you create rhythm. You make every interaction feel intentional, alive, charged. You guide the emotional tempo without forcing it. That kind of tension draws him in because it allows his imagination to participate. He becomes an active part of the experience rather than a passive observer. Mystery also requires authenticity. You cannot fake depth. Pretending to be mysterious is transparent. It feels empty. True mystery is rooted in emotional self-awareness. in knowing that not every thought needs to be expressed, not every feeling needs to be explained. When you have a strong inner world, when you are comfortable being misunderstood or not fully known, you naturally emanate mystery. You give off the impression of a woman who contains multitudes, whose essence can't be easily categorized. That's what pulls a man deeper. The sense that there's more beneath the surface than what he can see. Creating tension through mystery is about energy management. It's knowing when to lean in and when to hold back. When to give him a glimpse of vulnerability and when to retreat into your calm center. That dynamic movement keeps his energy engaged because it mirrors life itself. Unpredictable, flowing, rhythmic. Men are instinctively drawn to women who can hold that kind of energetic sophistication. It reminds them of the thrill of pursuit, not in a childish sense, but in a psychological one. The desire to uncover, to understand, to feel challenged. When mystery is paired with emotional warmth, it becomes irresistible. He doesn't feel pushed away, he feels intrigued. He doesn't feel manipulated, he feels invited to explore more of who you are. You create tension without anxiety, desire without desperation. It's not about being distant. It's about being dimensional. A woman who knows herself deeply but doesn't reveal it all at once becomes a living question, and questions keep the masculine mind engaged. The secret lies in allowing him to feel that he can approach you, but never fully possess you. That he can touch parts of you. Emotionally, intellectually, physically, but that your essence remains free. That freedom is what keeps attraction alive. Because once a man senses that your mystery is not a mask but a truth, that you are ever evolving, ever deepening, his energy stays tied to you through fascination rather than control. When a man desires you, his energy is directed outward. It's expressive, physical, often impulsive. But beneath that expression lies something more intricate, emotion that he may not know how to articulate. This is where reflection comes in. Reflecting his energy back with emotional intelligence doesn't mean mimicking his behavior or matching his intensity. It means tuning into the emotional frequency behind his actions and responding to that, not to the surface. When you can sense what his energy is trying to communicate, you meet him in a deeper dimension, one where connection replaces control and curiosity replaces reaction. Most people respond to intensity with either submission or resistance. They either give in too quickly or build walls to protect themselves. But emotional intelligence allows you to stay centered while still being engaged. You can hold his gaze, feel his desire, and yet remain in your own body, grounded, observant, attuned. This balance subtly redirects his energy because you're not absorbing it or pushing it away. You're reflecting it back with awareness. That awareness acts like a mirror, showing him something about himself he doesn't usually see. When a man's energy is mirrored back in this way, it awakens him. It makes him feel understood without words. You're not validating his ego. You're acknowledging his essence. You're saying through your presence, I see your desire, I understand its depth, and I can hold it without losing myself. That's profoundly disarming for him. It shifts his attraction from conquest to connection, from seeking control to seeking resonance. It creates a kind of emotional intimacy that most men rarely experience, but deeply crave. Control is about fear. The fear of losing power, of being rejected, of being unseen. When you reflect a man's energy instead of trying to control it, you remove that fear-based dynamic. You let him feel safe in his own desire. You teach him, subconsciously, that his attraction doesn't have to dominate, it can flow. This creates an energetic dialogue, rather than a power struggle. You're not fighting for attention, you're co-creating chemistry. Emotional intelligence means reading the subtext of what's happening between you. It's noticing the micro expressions, the pauses, the shifts in tone. It's feeling when his energy rises and when it withdraws, and adjusting your own presence accordingly. Not as a performance, but as a form of attunement. It's like dancing without choreography. You move with the music of his emotions, allowing the rhythm to guide the exchange. This level of responsiveness makes him feel emotionally seen in a way he rarely experiences, and that feeling becomes addictive. Reflecting his energy also means maintaining emotional boundaries. You don't become an emotional sponge. You don't absorb his moods or over-analyze his silences. You simply acknowledge what you sense and let it pass through you. That level of composure communicates emotional maturity, and emotional maturity is magnetic. It tells him, consciously or not, that you are someone who can hold space for depth, not just passion. You become the calm in the storm, the still point where his intensity finds balance. When you reflect his energy back with subtlety, you give him a new experience of himself. You don't challenge him by confrontation. You challenge him through reflection. You make him more aware of his own emotions by how you respond to them. When he's agitated, you remain composed. When he's flirtatious, you meet him with playful restraint. When he's distant, you stay open without chasing. Each of these moments teaches him something. Not through explanation, but through energy. In that dynamic, you become a mirror that elevates rather than diminishes. He starts to associate you with self-awareness, with a version of himself that feels more connected, more grounded, more alive. That's what obsession truly stems from. Not constant excitement, but the consistent experience of emotional growth through another person. You reflect his energy not to control his attention, but to deepen his awareness. And that awareness keeps him magnetically drawn to you. Every man wants his desire to feel meaningful. When attraction lacks depth, it burns out quickly. But when it's infused with purpose, it becomes devotion. Anchoring a man's desire in meaning doesn't mean convincing him to love you or giving his feelings direction. It means creating emotional experiences that awaken something in him beyond the surface level of pleasure. It's about guiding his desire toward connection, inspiration, and emotional resonance. When a man feels that his attraction to you carries significance, that it touches something sacred or transformative, he becomes emotionally invested in a way that transcends lust. Desire is powerful because it exposes vulnerability. It shows where we long, where we hunger, where we are incomplete. Most men are not taught how to sit with that vulnerability, so they often mask it with dominance or detachment. But when a woman can hold space for his desire without judging it or controlling it, She gives it dignity. She helps him see that his longing isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something that can connect him more deeply to himself. This shift is subtle but profound. It transforms desire from something he uses to feel powerful into something that makes him feel alive. When you interact with a man from this understanding, your presence becomes grounding instead of demanding. You're not seeking to own his attention. You're inviting him into meaning. You communicate through energy, tone, and awareness that intimacy isn't just about taking. It's about experiencing. You teach him that his attraction to you is not merely a reaction to your beauty or sensuality, but to the way he feels expanded around you. You become the space where he encounters more of himself, where his desire finds direction. To anchor desire in meaning, you must first embody meaning yourself. That means you live with intention, you speak with awareness, and you carry yourself with self-respect. Men are drawn to women who seem guided by something larger than validation. When you are connected to your own values, your own purpose, your own emotional truth, you exude a quiet magnetism. It's not about being impressive. It's about being real. That authenticity gives his attraction something solid to attach to. It tells his subconscious that there's depth here. That his energy isn't wasted. It's transformed. Every interaction becomes a chance to give shape to his desire. When he looks at you, he's not just seeing physical allure. He's sensing emotional gravity. It's in the way you listen, the way you respond, the way you maintain composure, even in moments of tension. You make him feel that being near you means entering a more conscious state of connection. And because that experience is rare, it stays with him. He may not know how to describe it, but he'll think of you when he feels the pull to grow, to love more deeply, to understand himself better. Meaning is created through emotional presence. When you're fully present, not distracted, not performative, you anchor both yourself and him in the moment. You allow the exchange between you to carry emotional weight. It's not about intensity for its own sake. It's about presence that feels alive and real. When a man senses that your presence awakens truth rather than fantasy, he begins to associate desire with emotional honesty. That honesty becomes the foundation of his attachment. Anchoring desire in meaning also involves emotional contrast. It's the interplay between softness and strength, between receptivity and boundary. You show him that love doesn't have to dilute passion. It can deepen it. You allow him to feel that the energy between you has depth, that it reflects something timeless and human. This balance of emotion and restraint keeps him captivated because it gives his desire context. It feels purposeful, almost sacred. When a man's desire finds meaning through you, it stops being about possession and starts being about connection. He begins to crave not just your body, but your presence, your energy, your understanding. Desire is turned what could have been fleeting attraction into an emotional journey, one that keeps unfolding every time he's near you. Feminine presence isn't about what you do to attract, it's about how you exist in the moment. It's the energy you carry when you are fully comfortable being seen, yet unattached to being chosen. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your worth isn't dependent on anyone's response. When you use your feminine presence as an invitation, not a performance, you stop trying to prove yourself and start allowing connection to happen naturally. This shift changes everything because energy born from authenticity always has more impact than energy born from effort. Most people confuse attraction with strategy. They think if they act a certain way, say the right things, or look a certain way, they can make someone feel something for them. But true magnetism doesn't come from tactics. It comes from embodiment. A woman who is deeply connected to her body, her emotions, and her intuition radiates an energy that words can't reproduce. She doesn't need to perform her femininity. She simply allows it to flow through her. That presence becomes an unspoken invitation for a man to drop his defenses and meet her where she is. Performance is rooted in fear. The fear of not being enough, of not being seen, of being abandoned. When you perform, your energy becomes anxious and seeking. But when you invite, your energy becomes grounded and open. You're not chasing attention, you're allowing resonance. You're saying without words, if you can meet me here, in this space of truth and openness, then we can connect. That's an entirely different vibration. It's calm, powerful, and alluring. Using your presence as an invitation means understanding that stillness can be more powerful than pursuit. When you walk into a room and carry yourself with awareness, shoulders relaxed, eyes soft, heart open, you create a field of calm confidence around you. The people feel it before you speak. Men sense it on an instinctive level. It's the kind of energy that draws them in without them knowing why. They're not responding to what you're doing. They're responding to how you're being. A woman who embodies her feminine energy doesn't compete. She complements. She doesn't need to dominate a conversation to be noticed. Her quiet focus makes her unforgettable. She doesn't try to impress, she inspires. That inspiration comes from her ability to be both strong and gentle, firm yet compassionate. It's a balance that invites curiosity. A man feels both safe and intrigued, knowing she is approachable yet cannot be easily conquered. That paradox, openness with boundaries, is what keeps his attention alive. The power of feminine presence lies in emotional awareness. It's the sensitivity to the moment, to the subtle shifts in energy, to the unspoken cues between two people. When you respond from intuition rather than impulse, you communicate depth. You show that you're not reacting to circumstances, but responding from a place of inner stability. That stability is magnetic. It tells a man that your world is rich, that your attention is valuable, and that being allowed into your emotional space is a privilege, not a guarantee. An invitation is soft but firm. It doesn't beg, it beckons. It says, I'm here grounded in myself, and you are welcome to meet me here if you can match my energy. This approach naturally filters out the superficial. Only those who can resonate with your authenticity will be drawn closer. This is how feminine energy becomes self-selecting. It doesn't chase alignment. It attracts it. Feminine presence also has a rhythm. It breathes, pauses, listens. It's not in a hurry. It trusts timing. It trusts that what is meant to align will align. That trust makes a woman irresistible because it communicates emotional security. A man feels that she is not trying to take something from him. She's simply offering an experience of depth and calm. He feels invited into something real. And that feeling, being invited rather than pursued, activates a different kind of desire in him. It's not based on conquest, it's based on reverence. When your presence becomes an invitation, you no longer have to fight for attention or validation. You create connection through energy, not effort. You give permission for authenticity to exist between you, and in that space, desire becomes more than attraction. It becomes a shared experience of being fully alive in each other's presence. Desire can ignite quickly, but devotion is something that must be awakened. It's born when a man's attraction evolves from instinct to emotion, from curiosity to reverence. To transform desire into devotion, you have to awaken his deeper self. The part of him that craves meaning, growth, and connection beyond the physical. This transformation doesn't happen through words or promises. It happens through presence. When you embody emotional depth, a man begins to feel something more than attraction. He feels seen, inspired, and challenged to rise into a higher version of himself. That experience of awakening is what turns momentary desire into lasting obsession. Most men operate from instinct when it comes to attraction. They are drawn to beauty, to energy, to chemistry. But when they encounter a woman who touches something beyond the surface, something inside them stirs. They begin to feel differently. Their usual patterns of pursuit, the chase, the conquest, the ego, start to dissolve. What replaces it is fascination mixed with respect. That's the beginning of devotion. It's not about control. It's about resonance. You've moved his desire from the physical plane to the emotional and psychological one. To awaken his deeper self, you must first be anchored in yours. A woman who is connected to her emotions, purpose, and inner truth becomes magnetic in a way that transcends appearance. Her energy carries a weight that can't be faked. She doesn't seek to impress, she seeks to express. She doesn't react from insecurity. She responds from awareness. That stability makes a man feel safe enough to lower his defenses, but also intrigued enough to stay engaged. He begins to sense that her presence demands something real. That to be near her, he must show up as his authentic self. This awakening is not about dominance or submission. It's about reflection and evolution. When you engage with a man through emotional depth, you invite him to explore parts of himself he rarely accesses. Maybe it's vulnerability, maybe it's tenderness, maybe it's his own desire for connection that he's been taught to hide. Through your presence, he begins to feel those parts come alive. He starts associating you with a version of himself that feels more integrated, more whole. That feeling becomes addictive. He's not just drawn to you, he's drawn to who he becomes around you. Transforming desire into devotion also means holding emotional polarity. You balance warmth with boundaries, softness with self-respect. You allow him to feel your openness without losing your center. When a man senses that he cannot shake your equilibrium, that your peace doesn't depend on his validation, he starts to revere you. You become not just a source of pleasure, but a source of grounding. He feels emotionally expanded by your energy, and in that expansion, his attraction deepens into admiration. A man's devotion is awakened when he realizes that his desire for you is connected to something larger. That it's not about possession, but transformation. He begins to crave your energy, not just because it excites him, but because it elevates him. It makes him more aware, more alive, more conscious. You become the mirror that reflects back his potential, the muse that challenges him to grow, the energy that demands his best. This is why devotion feels different from infatuation. It's not frantic, it's focused. It doesn't fade with time, it deepens with it. Awakening his deeper self also means creating emotional safety without predictability. He must feel that he can be vulnerable with you, but he must also feel inspired by the unknown that still lives within you. That blend of comfort and mystery keeps the connection dynamic. It keeps his energy engaged, his curiosity alive. Every time he interacts with you, he feels something new. A new emotion, a new perspective, a new challenge. That emotional renewal keeps his desire alive and channels it into devotion. Desire begins in the body, but devotion begins in the soul. When you can touch both, you create an experience he can't easily replace. You become the person through whom he experiences not just attraction, but transformation. You become the emotional landscape that he returns to again and again, not because he wants to consume you, but because he wants to feel the version of himself that only you can awaken.